No man behind. It's a motto from the armed forces, and it's a sacred promise, but one that was broken. Marines, sailors, and airmen from World War II are still left in unmarked graves. They fought on the tiny island of Tarawa. That's 7,000 miles away from D.C., right in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We sent our Mike Valerio there, and what he found was simply unimaginable. Certainly not the way our war heroes should be honored.
It's a trip that took us 7,000 miles, 22 hours, and halfway around the world. This is Tarawa, a group of islands in the middle of the Pacific, frozen in time. It's where we fought against the Japanese in World War II, and the wreckage of war is everywhere. But on this sandbar, only the size of the National Mall, we discovered the forgotten story of Howard Brisbane. Howard was a Navy sailor who became a medic after Pearl Harbor. He waded through this very lagoon to what seemed like a small speck, the farthest from home he'd ever been. They called it 1 square mile of hell, and it's here where Howard died, killed by a Japanese sniper.
Today, Howard's buried here at Arlington National Cemetery, but that wasn't always the case. In fact, he was found only 2 years ago, still on the island. Why? Because our country forgot about him.
This is a rare photo of how our fallen are found on Tarawa, and only feet from this U.S. Marine was Howard's skeleton, found in 2015. His bones buried underneath his green poncho. The men who fought on Tarawa are only now being excavated, and we were there to witness it. You see, Howard's story is part of what many consider to be a forgotten promise. 73,000 Americans are still missing to this day, killed in World War II and never found.
To put that in perspective, that's like 100 acres of Arlington National Cemetery simply gone. All of these graves vanished.
On Tarawa alone, 452 service members have never been found. It takes a toll on families to this day. You can see it for yourself.
They still there. We left these guys behind. The Marines, we left Marines behind. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. To see this.
We did not know. We did not know.
It's unbelievable.
This is Howard's oldest nephew, John, and we just told him, along with Howard's living relatives, that no one knew where the sailor's grave was for 70 years. No one could find it until now.
I was shocked that they really didn't know where he was all these years.
So why was Howard missing? You see, for generations, Howard's family thought he was buried here, a place on Tarawa with white crosses and white beaches, a paradise in the Pacific. But this is the reality. Pig pens and trash pits. Americans are buried in a trench just to the left, only a few feet away. Defense Department documents show that Americans were the ones who first cleared Howard's gravesite, all to expand an airbase. And only days after Howard died, his grave became a parking lot. The military never told his family. We did.
There was a memorial that's now gone, and the cemetery's gone. I mean, that part is just, that I found out all this today. And I'm just amazed that memorials are wiped off the face of the earth so they could build a parking lot or build a whatever.
So why didn't the government say anything to Howard's relatives? We went to the agency in charge of bringing our missing heroes home. It's called DPAA, the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, and we met with retired Colonel Fern Sumter Winbush. We simply asked, why wasn't Howard's family told what happened?
They were shocked that we were the first people to tell them that the final resting place for Howard was a parking lot. Any reaction to that?
No reaction. The only thing I have to say to that is where we have found remains, again, in many cases, 70 plus years later, a lot has happened.
Do you think in the future, similar families should know
about what happened and the circumstances of where their loved ones are buried?
Sure. And I can't tell you why they weren't told that it was a parking lot.
Hopefully in the future.
Hopefully in the future.
Howard's family was stunned.
I mean, I think the government could have done a better job. I mean, it's like the records were lost. I mean, if this island was so important, why not have some recollection of it after the war? Let's go do something. Let's bring these guys home.
Documents showed the records were lost, detailing where Howard and hundreds more were buried. That's why they couldn't find him. Maps weren't well kept. The priority was building an American air base, winning the war. We asked DPAA if any new policies are now in place to tell families how their loved ones are buried. So far, no word on any changes.
His bottom teeth are looking good.
Yeah, that's his maxilla right there.
So, how did Howard make it home? Well, it's all thanks to these private anthropologists who had the will to travel to the island and stay there. They found Howard by taking old maps and putting them on top of Google Maps. That's how they're finding the fallen and forgotten.
There are deep family wounds from this war and from this battle in particular.
Hillary Parsons is one of the anthropologists back on Tarawa, and she's leading the excavation of more Marines found underneath the sand. Her team member, Madeline Vos, shows us where her colleagues found Howard.
There were Marines who were buried from essentially the building to here.
Yes.
Take me through it.
The first row is up in this area here. And then the second row is this kind of area here.
But Madeline isn't a government employee. In fact, she works for a nonprofit charity called History Flight. And History Flight is the group that found Howard, not the Pentagon. So where is our own government in all of this?
Is this a promise that's unfulfilled, all these Marines still on the island?
It's only unfulfilled in the fact that we can't just find all of them and bring them back in one very dignified return. We have to find them.
But finding them requires help from the Defense Department. And the help that is coming may not be enough, as these fragile graves are under threat.
And these graves are in danger because thousands of people cram onto this small sandbar, and families build houses on top of these American resting places. Tomorrow we'll tell you how the Pentagon had a real funding problem here, and that's why it hasn't sent more help to bring our missing heroes home.
This story is just riveting and it is heartbreaking. Yeah. Does the Pentagon have anybody on the island, any official representative of the government?
The answer to that is no. There is nobody full-time from the Pentagon on this island. In fact, it's just private American anthropologists from that nonprofit who are on the island full-time, and then the military comes after these anthropologists find the remains. They come in a C-130 cargo plane and bring them back to Arlington.
It's sad, it's infuriating, but it's very important. Great work on this, Mike.
Absolutely.
And we're going to see him tomorrow for part 2 of this. We need your help on another chapter of the story. If you have a relative who fought on Tarawa and they never made it back, chances are they are missing in action. There are no marked graves anymore on Tarawa. You can check our website for the island's MIA database. Let us know if one of your loved ones turns out to be MIA as well.
Now